Good evening. Hopefully, everyone is doing well. We've been dealing with a lot of things, and my prayers are with those individuals that are their families and friends are going through the storms, dealing with these storms that are coming through our communities that are being very devastating. I know up there in the panhandle of Florida, Alabama, our prayers go out with them, and prayers continue to go out for those that are dealing with the issue of COVID and the pandemic, whether it is economic, financial, or whether or not it is health related. Good evening. Again, I am Dr. Gregory Salters. I'm currently serving as an interim assistant chief, and I love discussing the issue of law enforcement and how we're working with our community and the things in our community. Tonight, we're going to be talking about law enforcement, how to become a law enforcement officer. During these times, we have had different things come up where we've been talking about the defunding of police departments. We've been talking about the reallocation of law enforcement. And I will tell you that as a law enforcement officer, I think we should be doing some conversations regarding who will be working in our law enforcement agencies. How are we recruiting in our law enforcement agencies? I really have just not heard that much about trying to get individuals into our profession, because right now, as we're seeing, we definitely need more outstanding individuals in our profession. One of the things that we talk about a lot is who would really want to be in law enforcement. We talk about networking. People say your network is your net worth. A lot of times when we have those conversations, we're having them, but sometimes we don't understand that some individuals do not have a network or no individuals in certain career fields. Realizing that minorities are minorities in the law enforcement profession, how do we get those individuals out, and how do we get the word out to others that will be outstanding individuals and make outstanding law enforcement officers? I've had some conversations with Noble members earlier today, and we were talking about recruitment. We were talking about retention. We're talking about promotions. We're talking about what's going on within law enforcement, and we'll be following that up tomorrow. And I want to thank the Eastern North Carolina chapter of Noble for putting together their conference and allowing me to speak to their members, because these are some important issues. When you look at law enforcement and you look at recruiting, many times we look at it and we say, what type of individuals are we recruiting? How many times have you had law enforcement officers or law enforcement organizations say they look at criminal justice majors, they'll look at those individuals that were stated that they were into law enforcement? But many times we need to go beyond that, because people have stated insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So sometimes we have to go outside of the norm if we want to change what's happening. If we're really talking about law enforcement reform, are we reforming our recruitment practices? That's where we need to start. And at what age do we start recruiting? What age do we really start dealing with it? And I think that's one area where we miss the conversation when we're talking about community-oriented policing. Because if you're truly in the community and you're truly building those relationships, you will have it to where individuals from kindergarten or early elementary will have been exposed to the positive aspects of law enforcement, where we've been coming out to their schools, we've been participating in things in the neighborhood, and they began to view us in that light. I was speaking with another firefighter on last week, and he was talking about when he grew up, he saw his neighbor that was a firefighter, and that firefighter was home doing things, and it seemed like they were living the good life and having fun. So therefore, most of the kids now in his neighborhood are firefighters. So let's look at it with our profession. How many times do people see us? How many times are we out there? How many times do we discuss what we're doing in our profession? So as I often like to talk when I facilitate things, I like to talk on two sides of this coin. We're going to be talking to individuals that want to be in our profession, and what do they need to do? This is before you even put in the application in our discussion tonight. What do you need to do before you even put in the application? I'm talking to them. And then also for those of us that are in the profession, what do we need to be doing to individuals or for individuals before they even submit an application? So let's dive into this. While you're here tonight and you're joining us, be sure to share this with your friends, share it in your groups. Be sure to post, comment, tell me where you're in from in our zone so I can see what it is that we're doing, where we're having our people come in from, so that we can begin to tailor our conversation. And as we're tailoring our conversation, we're going to be talking about this because the information we're providing, sometimes individuals don't even think about this when they are going to apply for jobs in law enforcement. If you think about it, they're first time home buyer programs that tell individuals what to do before they even submit their application for the first time to buy their home. At your organization, do you all have a first time law enforcement application process or program which basically gets out into the community and lets individuals know what they need to do before they even submit an application? Because many times these are things that we are involved with, and what we have to do is to prepare people for the application process. Have you ever noticed sometimes that it is things that are in the application that causes individuals hurdles when trying to get on with law enforcement organizations? Sometimes these little technicalities could have been addressed if we would have talked about them before, or if we would have reviewed applications. Simple things, kind of like one application that one agency asked for, how many accidents have you been involved in? And now this is all stuff before the application that we need to discuss, because it asks you, how many accidents have you been in? Most people in the community, they'll look out and they'll go up, they'll pull up their records and they'll say, okay, it shows I was in 2 accidents. I know somebody hit my car when I was in the parking lot and backing out. It was an accident, but no police came, nothing happened, so they don't report it. But now, as you're going through the process and you see that that one was not reported, depending on the totality of the situation, using a law enforcement term, they may or may not count that against you. And depending on how that goes, because that's an accident that you had that you left off of your application because you saw that it was minor, and you look back at the question, it didn't say how many accidents that you have that weren't minor or how many were reported to the police department. So we get into those little things. So let's get in there. Make sure you shared it. Make sure you go there. Make sure you like the page. Make sure, and we're also on YouTube, so you can also be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel to continue getting great information regarding law enforcement, the community, and how we can really work together to improve our total community. So now, before you apply for a job in law enforcement, or when you're in your career exploration process, what things should you be taking into consideration? Some of the things that we look at is what's in your background and how early do you begin? Think about it. If you're in high school and you're doing things in your extracurricular classes and these type things, you might want to start writing these things down. When I work with individuals and they are going for promotional exams, I ask them to write an autobiography for me. And when they write that autobiography, I look to see what it is that they're doing. And as we work through the process, I tell them, once I've read them, most times their autobiography doesn't write it to sell them to a law enforcement agency. It doesn't highlight the things that they've done that would make them an outstanding officer. But everybody knows or has an idea of what an outstanding officer is. So what I challenge individuals to do is to look at their background, write an autobiography so that it will highlight the things in their background that would make them an outstanding officer. This is long before the application process and before you even take promotional exams. Because what you're doing now is you're going back and you're bringing up things that you possibly even forgot about. You may have forgotten, depending on how old you are when you apply for the job, you may have forgotten about things that you did in high school, and you were sports and team captain, and what that deals with building teams, building leadership, and what all that would do when it comes into law enforcement. You may have forgotten about various clubs that you may have been in that will add value to you and show that you're ready to go into law enforcement and take a higher realm in the game and be moving forward quicker. How many times have we really forgotten about a lot of things? And when you really think about public servants, we're so focused on serving, we don't really write down everything that we did that's going to help us get to the next level. So sometimes we just need to reflect on that, because that's what really happens when you're applying to be a police officer. You need to have your background things together and know how to sell yourself. Sometimes individuals don't. So now when you look at it, we're saying, how do we really move things forward? What's in my background? So now let's think about it. In your background, what have you done that would make you an outstanding law enforcement officer? Have you been involved in any games? Have you been involved in any um, organizations? Have you been a leader in anything? Have you gotten groups together? What is it that you're actually doing? And also, what are the qualifications? Have you gone and read the qualifications? And remember, when you're joining a law enforcement agency, many agencies, we're all looking for law enforcement professionals, but each agency has a different culture. And this is what I have to inform individuals. Some people say, I only want to work for this particular agency. I kind of look at law enforcement agencies kind of like a relationship. If you're in a relationship, you're with someone that you look at as being outstanding, and other people are in a relationship that they view as outstanding. So you can't have the same individual, but you have things there to where one agency may say, yes, they want to hire you, and another agency does not offer you an opportunity. So therefore, you need to make sure yourself is situated and look at your options. Many times people hear me say success is options. The more options you have in life, the greater your chances are for success. And so now when you're looking for this, you have to put yourself in the best possible position. And the interesting thing about law enforcement is you have law enforcement on your city, your county, and your state level, as well as your federal level. So now, what level of law enforcement are you looking at? Have you looked at all levels to see which would be a better fit? Have you looked at law enforcement to see what are the requirements at various agencies? Some agencies require a high school diploma and a GED. Others require a 60 credit hours or an AA. Some require a bachelor's degree. Then some of them begin to give benefits of what you can do, your tuition reimbursements that happen. And you start looking at things in society. And as much as people talk about law enforcement, firefighters, and everything else, when cities and organizations start laying off law enforcement officers or putting freezes on them, everything is going down because generally society knows we need outstanding law enforcement. And that's when I like to say reallocation of funds. So when you're looking at how your funds are allocated, are the law enforcement officers and the law enforcement organizations really creating value and building connections and building bridges with the community? That's what truly happens. And I gave the example in one of the classes I was teaching, a class in procedural justice to my agency, and we were talking about it. Our agency, years back, we were getting ready to reallocate funds, and we were going to be losing our mounted unit, our horses. The community wanted us to have the mounted unit. The community came in and funded us during that budgetary period, and therefore now still today, we have that mounted unit. But how did that happen? Built connections in the community. We did all of that. So now when you're looking to get into law enforcement, look at the various agencies that are around you. Look at the differences between your city law enforcement organizations. Look at your county law enforcement organizations. Look at your state organizations. Look at your federal organizations. And today when I was on the Zoom conference with Noble, the ENC chapter, there was a lady in there that had worked for NCIS, the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. So when I heard that, I thought about it. I said, how many people actually really think about all of the federal agencies that are hiring for law enforcement? That one was out of my radar. And because we normally think of the three most popular, you think about the FBI, you think Secret Service, DEA, you may think about alcohol, ABT, alcohol, beverage, tobacco, and you think about those, but how many other ones are out there that when in my class, we're talking about hidden figures. So these are hidden figures of organizations that we may or may not have even thought of even applying to. All of them need law enforcement officers. All of them need outstanding individuals. So before you even apply, you might wish to do some research and find out what are all of your options. What do these organizations have to offer? And as you're doing your search, also be sure you connect with those organizations. In this age, if you look at it with this pandemic, everybody is going virtual. Have you gone out there and let Google be your friend? Have you Googled the other agencies? Have you gone on their websites? Have you begun to follow their social media pages to see what they're doing? Google the agency, connect with them on your various social media platforms, begin to engage them. When you look over there, have you been over on some of the platforms? Have you gone and LinkedIn and put it in and just did a search? You may be surprised how many people in your neighborhood or in your network may work at these particular places or know someone that does, that may give you an introduction. Now, when you're doing that research, now when you approach individuals, you can have an intelligent conversation with them and say, wow, I've Googled your agency, and be honest. Don't try to go over there and impress them with everything. Be open and transparent. I'm interested in law enforcement. I have a friend that works city. I've talked to some individuals that have worked at the county, the state level, but I was Googling and I saw your agency. Where can I get some more information on your agency, or can you tell me a little bit more about your career? Or even when you do the messaging on the various social media, you're here on Facebook. Just last week, when I did a live, I was contacted by Daniela Pierre. And as a result of that, I was able to speak to the 28 colleges, the junior colleges that are here in the state of Florida, as we talked about race and talked about law enforcement on the campuses so that we can have those. All of that is a way of using social media on how we actually connect with each other for a positive way. So right now you're on here doing this. And as we're putting things up here, look over there. I'm going to try to look over in the chats and see what we have. Because sometimes if you're in law enforcement and you don't mind sharing, just drop in the post. You might want to just put in there, where are you calling in from? You might want to put in, where is it that what organizations is it that you work for? Are they city, county, or state? Which is it that we're doing? Because that gives us a broad spectrum of what our law enforcement profession is all about. The next thing, after you have done some of the research and you start networking, you might email the various agencies and ask them what type of opportunities do they have where you could get to know them more. You might even Google their command staff, look at their command staff. So therefore you can send an email to their command staff. You may even go, if you're looking at the local or the county level, you have the various officers, school resource officers that are at all of the schools in your area, at many of the schools. You can go out, you can speak to them. When you're out in your neighborhood, do you invite them to your homeowners meeting, to your organization's meetings? I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Do we invite them to our meetings to have conversations, to discuss issues that we could work on together and partnerships? Therefore, you can begin to put some ideas together. Wow, and see how God works. Just yesterday, I was talking to the individuals at the colleges, and Alex Jordan was over there. I see he now put one in here. Says, in my opinion, sustainability of great law enforcement officers is based on the quality of the agency. That's a strong statement, and that's a good Alpha brother making those statements. And when you look at the quality of the agency, what is the quality of your agency? And I'm glad you brought that up, Brother Jordan, because when we look at it, I've been talking about what the individuals need to do prior to applying, doing their research, finding out about their organization, and then moving forward. Now, as you have aptly pointed out, the agency, as an agency, have we made ourselves seem like we're open and warm for those type of intelligent individuals that really want to serve? I often say that the community must know you, like you, and trust you. What have we done for the community to know us, like us, and trust us? Because many times, if the community is unaware of your opportunities, people look right over you and don't even apply. It's kind of like if you look at some sports analogies, they think it very detrimental when an outstanding athlete leaves one state to go to another state to play college ball. They look at each other and say, what did we do to miss that opportunity? Do we do the same thing in law enforcement when we see individuals that leave our community or go to a next space to do things? Yes, I see Penny Morgan, you're saying that you wish to discuss domestic violence. That'll definitely have to be on another topic, as we're talking tonight, and we're dealing with those individuals that wish to be in law enforcement and what they need to do before they put in their application. And when we're talking about things that our organization is doing, what have we done positively? And when we go out into the community, are we largely talking about what we do in a law enforcement capacity? Or do we begin to discuss things that are saying, what is it that we need to be doing to recruit people? Or do we talk about our career options? Or do we mostly just talk about how we solve crimes or partnering so that we can perhaps get more information so that we can do our jobs? And then it's all about us. We need to focus more on the people that we're recruiting and what are they looking for. So now when we're doing that and we're talking to them, when you look in our career, do you really have to have a criminal justice degree to be in law enforcement? This is something that you have to look at as an agency. What are your requirements? Because one of the things that we look at is our requirements, and people have discussions, and it's very different in each community. That's where I'm a very big proponent of community-oriented policing and making sure that the agency that is dealing with the needs of their particular community. Because as Mr. Jordan stated again, dealing with your training, your policy, and assessment of ongoing best practices are some qualities of a great agency. And when you look at the training, this is one that is very, very interesting, because when you look at training, and this is something that is systemic, when you look at it, to be in law enforcement and to be a trainer, that implies, or to be a trainer, you normally have to have been in law enforcement. You'd had to be exemplary in your job. You had to be in the right place and do the right things within your organization to earn the right or the privilege of getting your training certification. Then you had to network and have your paperwork in order and everything else in order to get the opportunity to train at the academies. Or you had to be able to get the opportunity to be given an audience to where you could get out and do training on your own and put out training that law enforcement would endorse. So it is a process. And so this is what happens sometimes, is that people wonder how things keep going over and over. If you continually have individuals that are in your organization that don't grow, that are not culturally competent, and aren't addressing some of the issues or elephants in the room in their training, as you're training, you begin to share stories, and your stories begin to become part of your curriculum. So as that occurs, you begin to say, are we basically reliving old stories, or are we now moving forward with what we're having in today's society and showing individuals how to apply the training that they get today to move our organizations forward so that they can be both physically safe, politically and safe based on policies, and people begin to see the value that the law enforcement agency brings to the community. Those are some of the things that we began to put in place. And also, you'll even notice now some agencies are even going forward and having the community take part in their recruitment, hiring, and promotional processes. So from an agency standpoint, are you soliciting assistance from your community dealing with the recruitment and preparation of your applicants prior to them applying? One of the unique things we have here in Broward County, Florida, and it is very unique, and it's one that on one side of the coin can be totally understood, and on the other side, you kind of wonder why things are the way they are. Here in Broward County, Florida, before you submit your application, you must take the physical agility, which is your running, your pushing, your ups and different type, and the obstacle course. But also part of that physical agility is a swim test. When I joined the police department in '93, the swim test was swim 100 yards and on any stroke other than the backstroke, and tread water for 5 minutes immediately thereafterwards. I tried that and I was unsuccessful. I took the criminal justice basic standards test. I got 100 on the exam, but I could not submit the application because I could not pass the swim test. Other organizations within the area had swim tests also. So I kept taking them, and I eventually passed the one with the city of Fort Lauderdale, and here I am roughly 28 years later. The reasoning for the swim test is that in South Florida, we have a lot of waterways. And one of the things that we want to do is make sure officers can, at a minimum, save themselves if they were to fall into water. So now we do that in Broward County. Dade County, which is just south of us, does not have that requirement. And Palm Beach County, to the north of us, does not have that requirement. I have not done the measurement of the amount of waterways in each of the three counties to see if it is significantly different. But those particular counties and their particular law enforcement agencies have come up with those guidelines. Now, we wonder if that has a disparate impact on any groups. I believe it does have a disparate impact on some groups, Black, brown, and those that come from areas that were not swimming. But now, when you look at it overarching, can you definitely argue and say we definitely want to make sure our officers are safe? And if an officer is to get to a location and there may be a child in the pool, we definitely want to be able to have trained to get in there to at least save the child. Now, from a standpoint that we can deal with an agency, we understand that that may have a disparate impact on some groups. So what are we doing as an agency to address that need? One of the things we could do is partner, and we've done this before, the Black Police Officers Association. We've partnered with the fire department that has trainers. In our police department, we have dive team members. We also have the city that has pools and their lifeguards. So what we can definitely do is put things in place for those that aren't strong swimmers, to put them in place so they can go over, work with our team, learn how to swim, get a little bit better. So that removes that hurdle so that we can get qualified individuals into our organization. We have to think about it. What are the requirements and what can we do to get out there to help people prepare for this? The other thing that you need to do as an individual prior to applying for the police department, you need to pull your own credit, because sometimes your credit is run and used in your background. So there may be some things that pop up and you have forgot about them or unaware of them. You want to make sure you can address those issues before you even submit the application. Take care of that. Pull your driving history, because you might have forgotten about tickets or there may be errors on there that you need to take care of. You need to address that prior to applying. And now, when I look on the other side of an agencies, what do? Do we tell individuals what our standards are? If it's one of the things where you can't have but 5 tickets in a rolling 12-month period, do we let them know that? Or, because think about it, if the standard is 5 tickets in the last rolling 12 months and we let them know about it, they can pull their own criminal history and they can look at it and they can see whether or not they have 5 tickets in the rolling last 12 months, or whether they need to wait until some of the tickets fall off, as opposed to applying with us. We're using manpower to review applications to come up with something that is just as hard and fast as that. We need to look at that. So these are some issues that we need to take advantage of and that we need to do so that we can make sure our applicants are the best possible applicants they can be. Also, do we provide any opportunities from an agency standpoint for individuals to go through mock interviews? What will it hurt them to help them prepare for mock interviews? Do we provide examples of what they should wear when they come to interviews? Because times have changed. When I was in college, there was a book up there, what was it, Dress for Success, which basically taught you how to dress for business. And we had these different meetings that we had to do. Now our society has changed a lot from the suit and tie and other things that we're looking for in oral boards. And you also may have some individuals that just do not have a suit and a tie. They may need to know that they might want to just go out and get a suit and tie. They can go to stores, various stores that have sales on. They can go to a consignment store. They can go to Goodwill, get a solid navy blazer, white shirt, and solid tie, so they can come in looking professional. Because as we know, many times individuals are judged on their appearance. When you first see them, that could be a negative coming into an interview, and everything else would be downhill. So we need to coach individuals through these processes. So if we're coaching individuals through the process, we're telling them how they do their interview, we're telling them what to wear to their interview, we're providing the swim lessons or any other type lessons that may be out there. Is there a study guide for your exam, or do we give them references of where they can go to study for their civil service exams? So therefore we can make sure that we're getting our best possible candidates. Are we doing that? Are we meeting with the community and telling them what we're looking for and saying, you all are out here in the community every day. Can you all help us recruit individuals that will be policing your community? Help us do that so that therefore we can get individuals into our organization that will help our organization grow and help us build bonds within our community. And think about it. We often talk about building bonds, and I guess most times we talk about it, we're talking about it in the Black and brown community. But personally, I'm talking about the entire community. Within our business community, are you building relationships with your businesses and your business owners and your entrepreneurs? Because you know when they are victims of crime, we can solve crimes better. They have various cameras and everything around their businesses that may help us solve other crimes. I'll never forget, we had some pole cam set up at one time, and we were able to catch a major crime that happened in an alley just because we had our cameras up. Different things happen with all these cameras around. It is all about connections. So now back to my applicant. So now you know that you need to be seeking out some swim lessons, seeking out some study materials, because everything is a competition. You need to score as high as you can on these exams. You need to look in your background, check your credit, check your driving history, check all of those things to make sure everything is accurate and it is as best as it could be. Compare your records with what the police department is requiring, because you may have one or two issues, but the police department may not even be accepting those. So save yourself some time and save the agency some time. Make sure you've looked at your background. Agency, make sure we can put out as much stuff as we can. Put out videos about your process. Put out things. You may even start advertising. What is it like? I know I graduated from Florida A&M University, and I was looking on YouTube, and they had various videos saying a day in the life of a pharmacy major, the day in the life of a business major, the day in the life of a cheerleader, the day in the life of a drum major, the day in the life of an architecture major. And these individuals went through and did little videos about what it was like a day in the life of them. So therefore, you're hitting various things in the community. And as Mr. Jordan mentioned earlier, you are basically exposing them to things that are out there so that they know what your agency is about. And people begin to say, wow, I really want to work for that agency. Just when I was doing some work with Durham PD and Metro Houston, we go out there and say, what have we done to make others want to work with us? If you haven't done anything to make individuals want to work with you, then that is probably why they are not. And as I stated in the training earlier today, one of the brothers in Noble stated it. He said that everybody in your organization is a commercial for your organization. So what are those commercials saying? Are they making people want to work for your organization or not work for your organization? So as we've talked about tonight, steps you should take if you want to become a law enforcement officer. This is before the application. On our next talk, we'll be talking about what to do as you're putting in this application and going through the hiring process. Once again, I'm Dr. Gregory Salters. You all have just been seasoned for success. Be sure to connect with me on all forms of social media here on Facebook. You might want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, share the information with others, and be sure to, you can send me, you can DM me, you can email me any questions, any concerns. If you'd like to have me cover any particular issues dealing with law enforcement, education, and or the community and how we're tied together. You all have a great night. Take care.